Hi, Dr. Joseph Martin here again. Topic for our discussion today is reconstructing reality, resurrecting our dying global civilization. Now, first, let's just say from a truth perspective in terms of physics, astronomy, history, psychology, botany, biology, death and resurrection are the prime archetypal principles that rule all of creation and the universe. So, for instance, in terms of astronomy, we know that stars are born and galaxies are born and nebulae, and then they have a lifespan and then they die, they become supernovas, and then they just go into black holes. And also, we know that in the botanical world, the plants do the same and it's on a seasonal basis, but sometimes they even have a life cycle and then they fertilize something else to other new growth for the new generations to come. Humans do the same thing. They have a physical form, a body that they use and wear and incorporate when they have a great human earth walk life. And then, of course, they die, go back into spirit, have some time there to reconnoiter what their plans might be, and then come back and do it all over again. Now, in my personal life, as an individual, because I've had some interesting health challenges, I've had many near death experiences. I know personally that the prime archetype of human nature for all of us is to go through, in my case, every 7 years, which is a good cycle for the life cycle stages of growth for a human being, psychological death and rebirth, and often with that concomitantly a spiritual rebirth and also a new career. So I've had some very interesting careers. And as a psychologist and clinician specializing when working with people who are dying and moving into the spirit world, having worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and training with her in my early 20s, I realized that, of course, the life cycle for humans is very much a physical death as well as earlier psychological stages of death and rebirth, resurrection. This is something we've had to face head on, and it's important to do that all the time. And as an historian, as a social cultural anthropologist, I realize, of course, that all societies, whether they're small scale societies or large scale civilizations and even empires, they do go through the same process of birth. It's like a bell scale. They go up and they grow and they have a peak, a zenith, and then they decline and then they eventually die and then they are no more. That is the history in a nutshell of all the civilizations on Earth, except for one, and that's India. So let's just look at a couple of examples before we get to our dying and dead Western global civilization and see what we can do about it. This is something to be embraced and enthralled about and excited, in fact, because you can co participate in the reconstruction and resurrection of our new global human society. Let's go back all the way about 1500 years ago to King Arthur and the Celtic lands, the Celtic peoples, when he was reigning and he was the king. And you know many of those stories and Merlin stories. There's lots of movies and books and so on, BBC shows on Merlin you might want to look at. And we're aware that when the Normans invaded, and then later the Saxons, and of course then the Romans and so on, the Celtic peoples, who are the offshoot when Atlantis went down, they're one of the four tribes that left Atlantis, and they went to, of course, Ireland, and then Scotland, Wales, and England, and so on. The whole Celtic culture, the language, the arts, the magic, the healing techniques, the herbology, the medicines, the astral traveling, and so on, when it was defeated and destroyed by, again, Normans, Saxons, and Romans, it died. Well, there's a bit of a renaissance, in just in part, not in total, now again, of Celtic peoples who are relearning their language, their culture, their arts, and their music. Just go to Ireland, for instance, or Scotland. Then we had the same when the fall of Rome happened, which was in the 6th century in the Common Era. This great mass of one of the world's top and biggest and largest and most powerful empires of all time, and still being studied. There's still so much we can learn from it. It died, and there were many reasons. It overextended itself. It had too much egomania. There was too much crime and criminality in the top echelons. There was a lot of infighting for the top Senate seats and also for who was going to be the emperor, and just so much feuding, and they overextended themselves. And then the other cultures they had earlier defeated and killed, they took some reactionary responses and tried to, and then finally did destroy the Roman Empire. Through the Dark Ages that happened from about the 550 to 600 all the way through to about 1400, 1500. So we have a long period of Dark Ages. It was basically the medieval monastic monks in the Dark Ages in their little cloisters and their little monk monasteries and the nuns in their nunneries who weren't killed and raped by the invading Germanic peoples or the Vikings or many other peoples, who held the flame alight for doing illuminated manuscripts, and they kept the medieval medicines alive, the herbology for the herbal medicines, and they kept the plants and they grew them. They did studies, and Mendel was one of them who came up with genetics and so on, with crossing pea plants and so on, and some religious and scriptural mystical texts and other texts about all kinds of issues around justice and philosophy and so on. And they kept the light alive until the people and the consciousness came out of the unconscious again, and the people decided that there were, and these are cycles within individuals, ethnic groups, and common global humanity, that we came up with the Enlightenment and the Renaissance and rationalism as a philosophy and a way of living. And out of that, this is just a brief introductory study. There are going to be dozens and dozens of follow-up videos to this, because we'll have to look at all the issues of social organization, technology, and what it does and doesn't do for us, and also common global human issues of humanity. In any case, when industrial age happened and new technologies, the steam engine was only the first, and there were many more besides, it arose out of that there was a wealthy landowning class that could use the technology and own it and hire serfs or children for underwage labor or no labor wage at all. Lots of children died in the 16, 17, 1800s around these issues. And then people thought there's two sides to human nature: the greedy, selfish, non-caring, even hateful, hurtful side of human nature came forward. And then we started with capitalism, which in and of itself isn't bad, but we've come to the shadow side of capitalism, and that's why our civilization is dying. And colonization: people of all the European nations went and colonized the rest of the indigenous peoples of the world. We had total indigenous genocide of cultures and languages, to the point that hundreds of millions of people died, and in fact 85% of all the world's languages that we had 500 years ago are dead now. And of the 15% remaining, within 100 years, probably there'll only be 2% of the languages left. Obviously, they're the Western languages from Europe, and just a very few indigenous languages on the planet will stay alive. This is in humanity on the most massive scale. It's been our downfall. It's been stabbing us in the heart and stabbing us. It's our Achilles heel. It's what's caused the society to die. Because whenever a society or civilization, anyone, including our dead Western global civilization, comes to a place of inhumanity where people don't matter and resources don't matter unless you own them. You can take whatever you want, and people are objects, and you can treat them like objects or they don't even exist. When we come to that place, we've lost our humanity. And society exists only for the co-creation of a better humanity and a greater, better cultural society with better arts and music and things that can enlighten us. Well, we've lost all that now. We're definitely down at the bottom of the downslide. What will happen then is that, all of its experience, these are the people I talk to at the gym, in the store, on the sidewalk, wherever I go. Everyone's feeling the depression, the recession. Well, it's a recession of righteousness. It's a depression of diplomacy. It's an innate kind of insanity that we don't know how to look each other in the face and actually create some trusting, loyal friendships. Nevertheless, there are some things that we can do to to move forward, and we need to, obviously, humans are very adaptive. We just have to become conscious, for one, and in fact, super conscious. We have to take our noble side, all the four noble values, and the seven sacred truths of what it means to be truly human, become open hearted again, and get out of our ego heads, and come to the place where we can reconstruct a new world. And we'll have to do this co creatively and consciously. We will take the very best of human nature and our highest psychological principles and values and attitudes. We'll take only the very best of technology and make sure it's only used for good purposes, not for killing fields, not for nuclear bombs and war and militarization, but only for the very best to make our lives easier, smarter, um, more time for doing the things, which is spending time with people, and actually more creative and more innovation. Innovation is really needed right now. And besides that, we have to learn from history. It behooves all of us to just look at a little bit of history, even in the 20th century, with the two great world wars, and learn from that so we don't do that all over again. Step it up, move to the next quantum level of consciousness, and really engage in a very co-creative global process. Because now, with the masses of population and all the climate change and other issues and economic recession, depression we're in, we need to smarten up, take seriously that we have created a poisoned society, and society has poisoned our minds. It's socialized us. The story is over. The Western global hegemony of the political militaristic template is over. The story is dead. That story has long since died. It's taken a while to express itself in real terms that we can actually see, feel, hear, smell, and taste and touch. And now we know that we have to create a whole new cosmology that unifies from the source of our hearts to see ourselves as one species, one heart, one mind, one drum, one people, one family. Only this will get us through the crises and through the little knothole into a new doorway, a new entrance into a brand new story. We have to co-create a brand new story. People live by stories, life stories that are personal life stories, family stories, ethnic stories, and now we have to increase this to one global new family story where there's human rights for all, regardless of your skin color, the shape of your nose, your eye color, your orientation, your age, your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, and so on. We are moving towards this. There is a global movement of consciousness, higher super consciousness towards this, and we can call it Occupy New Resurrecting One Family Story for all of humanity. And it's an exciting thing to think about. I'd suggest that you, on your own, journal about this and sit down with your friends and try to write a story for the new coming resurrected society that will replace the dying Western global civilization. The Chinese proverb says, may you be born in interesting times, and now is such a time. Let's make it even more interesting by renovating, reconstructing, resurrecting all that's good in us as human beings and connected to our divine source of all that is, and the cosmos, because we're other brothers and sisters, obviously, out in outer space and in inner space. This is just an introductory video. I hope you've enjoyed some new questions, some new ideas, some new thoughts. And we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you at any time that you choose to. Dr. Joseph Martin, in, out, forward, onwards, upwards. And be blessed in all ways, and be grateful for the human life that you have and you are. All light, all love, support, service.